thank you very much, and thanks very much for the invitation to come and speak. And I've been chatting to the guys, actually Richard and Jean-Luc and everything about tonight, because I stand here as a bit of a kind of basket case, really, in terms of my views on marine conservation. And it's really important when you do a talk that you have a clear theme, you've got a clear message you're trying to get across. And I haven't at the moment. This is a kind of mass group therapy session for me, really, this talk. And all I'm going to do is sort of talk through the sort of slight dilemmas that I feel, because I think they're really interesting discussion points. I'm also going to just go through a little bit of the Fisherman's Apprentice experience. It's very easy to stand up and just show a series of music slides of me chundering over the side of fishing boats. That's the easy get-at course. And let's face it, it was pretty funny. But there's other things I'd kind of like to touch on. And the best way really to describe why I want to touch on those things is when the series went out, I got very sort of viciously attacked by two lobbies. One was the Scottish large boat trawling fleet, who felt that because I was championing the small boats, I was directly attacking the large boats. And the other one was conservation groups, certain conservation groups, who said, you are now a fisherman, therefore you are evil. All fishermen are evil. And so you got that group there sending me vitriolic emails, and when it comes to sending vitriolic emails, I am the champion. So I was bouncing back some pretty good ones, but I thought, hang on a minute, we're just exchanging abusive emails. And the lobby on this side as well. And it seemed to me that if you try to get that lobby to speak to that lobby, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to hurl insults back and forth. There's this whole group of people in the middle, the majority of fishermen and the majority of conservation groups and legislators that actually do want to talk and do want to engage with each other. And Jean-Luc from the Marine Conservation Society is an old mucker of mine, and I phoned him and said, Jean-Luc, I'm getting attacked from both sides here. Now, I wasn't expecting this. There was a pause on the end of the phone, and Jean-Luc said, welcome to my world. With feeling, he said that. So, I will talk through the Fisherman's Apprentice thing, but when I went down to do the Fisherman's Apprentice, I was very, very nervous indeed, because I went down as a conservationist. And there's a real danger of when you appear on the telly, people think you're an expert in things, and I'm not. I did a marine biology degree, and I know a bit about conservation. There is way, way more expertise in this room. There's way more expertise in the front row than I will ever have about these issues. These are huge issues, and I'm an ex-Royal Marine. I've played rugby for 40 years. I get hit on the head a lot. And a lot of the issues I found very, very complex. It was fairly simple for me when I went down to that fishing village. I thought, I'm a conservationist, and fishermen at that time I perceived were overfishing, were being greedy, and were having a detrimental impact on the oceans. And when I left the village, Copenhagen syndrome, when I left the village, I was kind of like, well, maybe the conservationists have got it wrong. You know, I've heard some compelling arguments here about how the conservationists have got it wrong. So it was a really valuable experience for me doing that. And also when I turned up in the village, I expected a very hostile reception, and what I met in that village and what I met in, I must say, the fleet, every single fleet I worked with, every boat I worked with, was a bunch of hard-working fellas who were very proud of what they do and did want a sustainable way forward. Certainly the will was there without a doubt. So I thought it was a great point that Jim made there, saying, you know, it's really, we mustn't vilify the fishermen. There's an awful lot wrong with the legislation, and at governmental and EU level, we shouldn't vilify the fishermen. So that was quite a strong kind of point for me. I'm just going to tell a quick story. I went to a talk by the Swedish ambassador a few years ago. There are a lot of, what are they called? Ferrero Rocher. And he told a great story about because he was so good at his job, the UN sent him to negotiate with Saddam Hussein at the start of the Iraq War. And he turned up at this, in this room in Iraq, and sat at this big marble table with his mates, all the negotiators from the UN. He was heading the legislation, and Saddam Hussein came in with everyone, all with sidearms on. And the Swedish foreign minister said he'd never known an atmosphere of such fear around one person. And they sat there and they talked for a while, and Saddam left, and then his foreign minister came in, and the conversation went on with his foreign minister. And the Swedish, they hit a point of an impasse, and the Swedish ambassador said to his interpreter, well look, where do we go from here? I don't think there's a way forward. And it was translated as, look, I've totally lost interest in this, I'm going home. The translator said, basically. So the Iraqi foreign minister, Gunn, with all his mates with guns, was kind of like, well, what do we do now? And said that to the ambassador through an interpreter. And the ambassador said, I've always wanted to buy a Persian carpet, and an Iraqi carpet. And the foreign minister said, right, great, let's go to the market. Because we've run out of things to talk about, let's go to the market. So these two guys went down to the market, got rid of all their entourage and everything, went down to the market. Julie got ripped off by some bloke selling them a carpet. So the Iraqi foreign minister stepped in and said, no, you're being ripped off, and negotiated and things. And they sat down and had a cup of tea, talked about their families, and then they started really talking about the issues. They'd got away from all the entourages and all the fog and all the diplomatic stuff, and there were just a couple of blokes having a cup of tea, talking about a problem and how they could get around it. And he saw the man then, as opposed to just seeing the issues. And I think that's what I saw a little bit with the fishing fleets. So anyway, moving swiftly on. Just a little bit of background about, obviously I have always been passionate about the sea, and it was interesting that the guys I met and I worked with during this experience were equally passionate about the sea, and it remains this huge sort of passion for me. I'm very much an end user with the sea, in that I sort of take people to see big animals, and obviously this is a great white, and just out of interest, this particular animal, I'd always wanted to see one, and I was off Dyer Island at last in South Africa, 60,000 Cape Fur seals, and the killing zone. There we were, with the fish all in the water, and waited. And I said to our guide, how will we know when there's a great white around the boat? Do the seagulls change their behaviour? Do the seals sort of start, vocalising differently? And he said, oh no, there's kind of a sound we listen for, we know it's very distinct, and when you hear it, you'll know there's a great white around the boat. And from the back of the boat, I heard someone go, Jesus Christ! He said, that's the sound. And also filming as well, and as I said, there is this rather strange thing of being seen, I think, as an expert in these areas. As I said, I'm a marine biologist, so I have a level of expertise, but in terms of the big issues, sometimes I find it completely overwhelming, as I think we all do. Hearing the news about the Great Barrier Reef, whatever it is, 50% gone in the last 25 years, another 50% of what remains will go in the next 10 years. You can become a bit overwhelmed sometimes. And I think, all you can do is make your own contribution somehow. You pick your battles. And that's why every single person who joins the MCS is a really valuable asset, I think. And every single person is contributing, albeit a tiny little contribution. And a little bit more later on from me about how I think I can contribute to this battle. And it's ongoing for me, still doing lots of trips. South Africa, trying to get a shot of a breaching great white taking a seal, and at last managed to get one, and then deleted it by accident in the boat on the way home, and that was taken by the bloke sitting next to me. So, but onwards to the Fisherman's Apprentice, and I'll talk you through the experience very quickly of kind of what it was like to be a kind of lanky, posh bloke called Monty, who was asked by the BBC to go and work as a Cornish fisherman for 8 months. Initially I said no, and I didn't say no because I didn't particularly want to go down to Cornwall, I didn't particularly want to experience it. I said no because I was knackered. And I'd just done 3 series of Great Escape and Great Barrier Reef, and it's all amazing stuff. But I was on the road for 5 years and I'd had enough. And basically the beep said, go down there and meet the guys and get them to tell you a little bit about their story, then make your decision. And when I went down there, it was an absolute no-brainer. I thought, this is such an important story to tell, because we could be in our last generation of British fishermen. The average age of a fisherman around the UK is 49 at the moment, and there's no second generation coming through. And these are our last hunter-gatherers, the last tribe who hunt wild food for our consumption. And it's a whole heritage and culture thing. I thought it's a really, really important story to tell. So I ended up actually going down there and working from this little village called Cadgwith Cove, and spent 8 months there, 8 months, well, 8 months. And the beach there has always had boats on it since Roman times. And the interesting thing about this place is all the boats are under 10 metres long. As I'm sure you know, the classifications are under 10s and over 10s, and there's various other classifications as well. That's one of the big ones in our fishing fleet. And the men have to work together to get the boats on and off the beach. And also, because it's so exposed, for many, many days of the year they can't go to sea. So in a way, they have their own quota system. They get out whenever they can. But sometimes 100 days a year they can't get to sea. But as I said, it's a very, very historic place. And the beating, multicoloured heart of that community are the fishing boats. They've shaped that community, they've moulded it, and they remain the heart of it to this day. So we thought that was a really good spot to get down and actually learn about what fishing was all about. There we are, they're all under 10 metre boats. As I'm sure you know, 80% of the fishing boats in this country are under 10 metres long, and they catch 8% of the fish. So, and I've only got 4% of the quota as well. So, again, these are arguments that are highly complex. I spoke to a fisheries officer while I was down there, and he said he wants to have a T-shirt, but written on it, it just says, "It's complicated." So you can just go like that when people approach him about issues, relating to the fishing fleet. 94% of bottom-dwelling fish around the coast are caught by 4% of the boats, the beam trawlers and all that. More about beam trawling a little bit later on. I said I was a bit schizophrenic about all this. Here I am chatting to the Marine Conservation Society, and I'm really delighted to be here. In about 2 weeks' time, I'm off to chat to the beam trawling fleet in Brixham. And you must come out with the same arguments to the MCS as you do with the beam trawling fleet. I can't come here and say, "Oh, beam trawling's really bad, beam trawling's really evil," and then go and say to the beam trawling fleet, "Oh, beam trawling's fine, just crack on." You must, if you have any integrity, come out with the same arguments. And I think sometimes I do find that very complicated. Although the beating I would get from the beam trawler skippers probably isn't as bad as the beating I get from the Marine Conservation Society. So, but the idea of the programme was to try and experience what a small boat fisherman in the UK experiences today. Why are they in the trouble that they're in? Why are they heading for oblivion? And so try and experience the economic reality and the grim reality of working day to day as a fisherman. So I had to make this transition from being a conservationist and a diver, and quite an outspoken one as well in terms of marine conservation zones and the like, to being a fisherman. And they found the one fisherman in Cornwall, and possibly on Earth, who wasn't going to attack me with a fillet knife for repeated incompetence on his boat. And that fisherman is a guy called Nigel, aka my dad. Now, tremendous man. His family had been fishing from that beach since Roman times. Nigel's been fishing from that beach since Roman times, I think. Real wisdom. And he's, again, a real end user of all the legislation that's come down and found it baffling. He's seen it change beyond recognition in his lifetime. He's desperate to engage with conservation groups and the legislators and try and find what's going on. But he's at his wit's end, really. He finds it all very confusing, as I think an awful lot of fishermen do. And Nigel, incidentally, since the series went out, is being chased around the beach at Cadriff by ladies of a certain age. It's a bit dashing, is Nigel, But I might have looked like this at the start of the experience, ex-Royal Marine, big rootsy, tugsy, hairy bummed explorer, kind of been there and done it, ready for anything. But I've never been so nervous about the challenge I was about to take on. So I looked like that actually I felt like that. I knew I was getting into something. It was a whole new culture. It was that unless I could prove myself on the boats, I was in a world of trouble, and I knew it was Dickensian toil that I was kind of taking on. So I was very, very, very nervous about it. There was the additional factor as well, of course, that it wasn't just me on the boat. That's Nigel's boat, an 18-foot crabber, and it was 5 of us on there pretty much the whole time. Me and Nigel alone, talking about what a beautiful day it was, philosophising. We always had these 3 Muppets following us around the film crew. And I think the one area that I really did disappoint the fishermen in was the fact I'm a really cheap date, always have been. And if I have a couple of beers, that's me gone. And the fishermen found, they enjoy a drink down in Cadriff. And so you basically got the crew upheld the honour of the BBC. Charlie Sheen, Prince Harry, George Best, pretty much. But just to touch on a few things about this deep heritage and this deep culture. And I wish I had hours to talk. You're delighted I haven't, I'm sure. But because this presentation talks about so much of the positive aspects of the fishing fleets and the men that I met. I had nothing but admiration for the guys that I met. And of course, there's another side to it. Of course there is. TV loves heroes and villains. And that's the way things are edited. Each month was edited down to 1 hour. So the stories had to be quite simple. And we had lots of heroes in our stories. And of course there were villains there as well. And there's villains in the industry as well. So I'd like to sort of expand on that a bit more. But I'm just going to concentrate on the guys that we work with. Nige there. He just talking about some of the traditions as well surrounding the fleet. Bear in mind, it's been going on for thousands of years. This industry kind of defines us to a degree as an island nation. You know, these are the guys who went out in the Armada. These are the guys who have always been on the front line of any invasion on the coast. And he talked through some of the customs and traditions. Fishermen, a lot of fishermen wear an earring. And I said to Nige, well, what's the earring about, Nige? And he said, basically when fishermen used to fall overboard and drown, which back in the day a heck of a lot of them did, still by far and away the most dangerous profession, peacetime profession in the UK. But the sea will quickly remove your clothing when you're dead, you're drifting. And they might wash up in a beach that's many, many miles away from their home beach. So the earring paid for the funeral. You always had gold embedded in you to pay for your funeral when you were found. Various things on a fishing boat. It's very unlucky. Women are unlucky on a boat. Green is unlucky on a boat. You never say rabbits on a boat. You turn your boat a certain direction out the cove. If you forget to turn it that direction, you turn it the other way. You stop fishing and come back and turn it the right way, obviously. If you see a priest in the morning, you don't go to sea. You know, all these amazing different customs and pasties. You know, I asked Nige about all the customs, and a lot of them are pagan things, you know, and it's an indicator of just how ancient this way of life is, the small boat fisherman. And I asked him about the pasty thing, and he was like, well, it'd just be a soggy mess, wouldn't it? So that's the reason I don't take pasties. You can take a pasty as long as you stab it vigorously. If you accidentally find one on board, you stab it vigorously. I do boat trips out of Dartmouth now, run an eco-tourism business now. And the other day I was on the boat, and there was a lady sitting in the seat behind me. And as we went close to the cliffs, she went, oh look, a rabbit. And I looked around, she had a pasty in one hand, and a woman saying, oh my God. So, this series meant the world to Nige, because he'd seen his industry slowly dying. And he looked into the future and he thought it was really, really bleak. And he wanted to tell the story. And so he took it, you know, very, very seriously, as you can see from the shot. Basically, again, this is anecdotal. These are my experiences, really. That's all I'm sharing with you now. That was day one of me taking over a skipper, and the other skippers made their feelings known about how they felt about me taking the boat out. Again, it was very interesting. All of them, at some point during that first morning, came up and said, look, get on the blower. If you have any problems at all, just give us a shout. We'll race to be there to help you. Don't be proud. It's very dangerous out there. Give us a call if you have any snags. So out we went. You know, the couple of things I did learn about fishing was everything's incredibly early, ridiculously early. I was absolutely knackered for 8 months. You know, pretty much the whole time I was down there, I was really shattered. And the other thing was the danger, of course. That's Nige in his 18-foot boat, and that's a wave coming into the cove, a freak wave coming into the cove. It's about 16, 18 foot high, that wave. And Fisherman has a 1 in 20 chance of being killed during the course of his working life. Since 1997, 24 fishermen a year on average have been lost around our coast. This is from a tiny little industry. You know, it's only, I think, 6,000, is it, Jerry? About 6,000? Yeah, about 6,000 fishermen. So in terms of like proportions, it's proportionally incredibly dangerous. So that was something that was a constant lurking factor every single day of fishing. You only take off the ball for a sec, and you'd have a real problem. And the other thing I learned is that all fishermen in the UK, every single one of them, is 5'8". There's kind of an optimum height for fishing, I think. And, I did a talk the other day in Brixham, strangely enough, at a charity do for one of the lads who'd been lost at sea. And I said that all fishermen are 5'8", and a 6'5" beam trawler skipper came up to me afterwards and went, "I think you'll find we're not all 5'8". I went and locked myself in my car. And just in terms of the graft, you know, I can't begin to describe you know, what it was like. Basically, if you're moving lobster pots, you're moving, say, 300 a day, and crab pots, sorry, and each one weighs 10 to 15 kilograms. You're doing it on a gym floor that goes like this, basically. So you move 3 to 4 tons of weight every day. These guys will move 3 to 4 tons of weight on a good working day. Yeah, there's no denying the graft, and as I said, there's no denying the quality of the men. Very interesting thing about 300 pots, by the way. One of the potential dilemmas facing our inshore waters at the moment is the way the numbers of crab pots have absolutely exploded. One of the reasons is that we've seen the advent of the super crabber. Big boats used to be small boats. Now you get some really big ones with thousands of pots. This was Harvester, which had 3,000 pots on the go at any one time. What that's done is it's depressed the price of crab to a degree. So how do you respond to that? If you're a small boat fisherman with only 50 pots, you buy more pots. And the moment you buy more pots, what happens? More crab are caught and the price gets depressed. So how do you respond to that? You buy more pots. So that's one of these self-perpetuating cycles. And from what I understand, no one really knows where that's going and the impact it's having on crab populations. But I'll show you an example of a really good sustainable fishery in a moment in America. Also learned the difference between the static gear and the trawl gear, and there were day boats and there were boats that went out for a very long time, and all these different forms of fishing. And you know, one of the things that really stood out for me was that the small boats, the day boats, compete to a large degree in the same market as a lot of the big boats. And the quality of the fish is better from the small boats. So the large boat guys say this as well. You know, that basically you're out and back on a day, you're caught in static gear, so you're not crushed in trawls, so the flesh isn't bruised and things. And one of the potential ways forward is to identify that and say, look, these small boats that fish slightly more sustainably are producing a better quality product. So we should surely give that a premium. But again, more of that in a moment. Also learned the madness of the way we treat our seafood. We, the British public, have completely fallen out of love with our seafood. And the French and the Spanish think we're insane for the way we treat our seafood. That's the spider crab, obviously. Beautiful, sweet meat. You're not going to get a more delicious crab pretty much anywhere in the world. We export 95% of the crab that we catch in this country. We'd pull up onto the beach in Razorbill, there'd be a lorry at the head of the cove, little catch with cove on the Lizard, doors open with Vivier tanks in, our crab would go into that lorry, drive to Heathrow, flown to China. So this big distribution thing that we've got going on, and we import about 70 to 80% of the fish that we eat. So that, I think that thing of us losing that link with our fishermen is pretty critical actually, because it means there's a big logistics chain and the guys don't get a lot of money for what they're doing. The average income of a fisherman in Cornwall over the course of a year is 50 grand a year. None of them do it for the money, believe me. Small boat fishermen, discovered almost, dare I say, the good days. You know, the days when you suddenly got it and you realised you know, why the guys actually went out and fished. It's quite primal. As I said, this kind of hunter-gathering thing. Lobsters was one of the predominant things caught catch with. Big lobster like that, 80 years old, 70, 80 years old. And what Nige used to do, he used to put the really big fellas back, because he said these are the breeding stock, you know. And he also said, my dad probably caught this lobster. So, you know, he just couldn't bear. He said, really big ones, people can't buy whole because they're too expensive. You can't buy them whole in a restaurant. So they end up in soup. And he's like, look at that big old Chelsea pensioner there, he shouldn't go in a soup. So he'd slip it back and then glance at the plotter and come back where the camera crew wasn't there. So, that was our theory, yeah. There was one netsman in the cove, and I just want to talk very briefly about the seasickness thing, because I fished there for 8 months and I was seasick 3 times. But the cameras love a puking TV presenter. So it featured massively in the shows that I was just puking all the time. And my life down in Dartmouth, I live, as I said, down in Dartmouth now, and it's hell. Because lots of tourists coming along, oh, you're right, oh, you poor thing, you know. And Lewis, one of the fishermen there, I tried every single cure going, because when I was sick, I really was sick. And Lewis, one of the fishermen there on the beach one day, said, I've got a great cure for seasickness. I've been fishing many years, and this never lets me down. And he said, "Come here, boy, I'll tell you." And I went and sat next to him on this net bin, and he leaned, he got me, came like that, and I leaned right in, and he went, "When it's rough, I don't go out." But just out of interest, the time I was really sick was on Danny Phillips' boat Scorpio, which is a netting boat that's 4 miles off the Lizard. And again, that was one of the things I kind of learned about, was the 6 mile limit, the 12 mile limit, historic rights, how incredibly complex all of that is as well. And it's a lot for a fisherman to try and sort of take on, you know, just how complex all that is. I certainly couldn't make head and tail of it. But we were fishing 4 miles off the Lizard. I got very sick indeed. And the cameras actually saw me pass out, and my head hit the deck with this audible bong. And Perry, the crewman, ran over, and by the time he got to me, all he could see was the whites of my eyes, and I was kind of thrashing around histrionically like some aging spinster. And not a good look, by the way, when you're trying to prove yourself to the fisherman. But it was the second time it had happened, and the time before the cameras hadn't been rolling. I'd passed out behind the wheelhouse. The lads, you can see Danny just leaning over looking at the net there. I was behind the wheelhouse here, and I passed out straight into a box of monkfish. And monkfish, jaw like a wheelie bin lid, big teeth, switchblade teeth, and my arm flopped into very much alive monkfish, and one of the monkfish clamped on and started savaging my arm, and that's what brought me round. And bang, Christ, the cameras weren't rolling, because it was like BAFTA award-winning material, obviously, but the humiliation would have been unbelievable. That's my hand at the end of that particular incident. Now, the beam trolling side. This is what sees me being particularly schizophrenic about this, and I'm still trying to think of my line and my angle on this. And the reason is that beam trawling exists, and I think Jim, who said earlier on, made a very valid point that the fact this type of fishing exists and is allowed and feeds the markets, the small boats couldn't possibly feed the markets, is something we have to accept, that this is part of the British fishing scene, the commercial fishing scene. And I think the best way forward is to engage and talk and try and sort of communicate with the beam trawling fleet and the beam trawling setup to look at the modifications they're introducing to their gear. I was chatting to Jean-Luc beforehand, saying that certain areas that we're trying to set aside as MCZs, the beam trawlers are saying, well, no, we still might want to fish there. We leave those areas, they're classic beam trawlers, but we might want to fish there, and that's the infuriating argument. But undeniably, beam trawling is a highly effective form of fishing. Undeniably, it impacts the seabed. And the argument of the beam trawler guys is, we know it impacts the seabed, we know we plough the seabed, leave us to get on with it in certain designated areas and we'll supply your fish for you. If we lose our large boat fleet, then where does the fish come from? You know, we're just opening the door to the French and Spanish fleets to come in. So as I said, very complex arguments, and I'm not quite sure where I stand on those particular arguments. I need to learn a lot more about it before I can comment on it, I think, with any authority. But what I do know is I've never worked so hard in my life as I did on that beam trawler. 8 days, they haul the net every 3 hours, and for 8 days you sleep, most you sleep is a couple of hours, and the graft is absolutely unbelievable. There's no day or night, really, you know, it's just every 3 hours that net gets hauled. And initially, you know, I was pretty horrified at the stuff that was coming up, but and then thought I just have to accept this is reality of our fishing at the moment. And you can rant and rave and rail and take people on and all that, but I think the moment you start shouting, then you're not at the table anymore. And you know, I just thought to myself, it's really important to understand what's going on here, try and understand the rationale, and try and engage and develop a decent dialogue between the conservation groups, the legislators, and the beam trawling fleet. What we did find was a lot of the guys on board, you know, of course they wanted to move forward sustainably, of course they did, and try and figure a way out, because they were from fishing families, and they wanted to hand the operation over to their sons. So, as I said, it was a funny old one for me, but again, there's no denying the quality of the lads on board, and the way they looked after us was fantastic. And certainly the beam we were on was working very cooperatively and actively with the scientific community. So, you know, as I said, it's a very complex argument for me. But certain things are very simple. And you know, I said at the start that the mere act of joining the Marine Conservation Society means you are doing something. And your contribution, it might be a tiny contribution, but it's a contribution. You've gone on your hind legs and you've done something. Well, we found something that I personally think I can contribute. And so this is the route we're going to go down. We went to America and had a look at their fisheries in America, because we heard stories about very successful fisheries and the fisheries that had turned around and were fishing reasonably sustainably. We went to Gloucester in Massachusetts, and we also went to Port Clyde. They faced and still face very similar issues, like, you know, their small boat fleet's dying out. They've got issues with very large boats, but again, they need to supply the fish from somewhere. There's legislative issues, there's all sorts going on there. And the first thing we looked at was their fishing techniques. Now, this pot has been developed over many years, and basically this is Maine, the coast of Maine. And in '97, control was handed over to the fishermen to say, right, you now fish this and you control it. You tell us how you're going to do it. They're overseen by federal authorities, but it's the fishermen. They divided themselves into 7 councils made up of 7 elected fishermen, and they've ruthlessly policed their own fishery. Basically, the pot, everyone has to fish using these pots. It's got an escape hatch here, so small lobsters just come straight out, so there's no stress of being caught. When the pot is lost, if it happens to be lost, there's sacrificial clips up here that mean the whole hatch falls out, so everything just comes straight out. Best of all, every year they issue fishermen with a number of tags. And they say, right, these are your 300 tags for this year. Every pot, and each year, every tag's a different colour. Every pot has to have one of those tags on it. The federal authorities at any time can haul any strings of pots. And if they haven't got the numbered tag on it, they're instantly confiscated. So, you know, they also have a large lobster chuck-back policy as well. And since 1947, their catches have increased. And since 1997, it's been the most successful lobster fishery in the world. 2 boats have to leave the fishery for 1 boat to join. So it's worked very well in this particular case. There is an interesting little sideline to that, though. I spoke to the fisherman and said, how do you police it? Because certainly in the UK, and Jerry was just saying this, you know, it's real difficult getting fishermen to cooperate on anything. And the guy I spoke to said, it's easy. He said, 2/3 of us are Sicilian and 1/3 are Irish. So he said, if there's a problem, he said, we just put the windows of his boat in, you know, and people don't break the rules anymore. So there we go. Right, nearly done. As I said, we also went to Gloucester, and spookily, we turned up in Gloucester 20 years to the day that the Andrea Gale went down. And the Andrea Gale was the boat in perfect storm. And where did we check in? Just randomly, it was the Crow's Nest, which was the bar where all the guys drank. So it was a really interesting, very poignant time to be there. They fished the Grand Banks, the George Banks. Now there's a story of overfishing. There's a story of overexploitation that's slaughtered an ecosystem. It's actually, you know, killed it completely. But you know, we worked with their community and their fishermen for a little while. They used to do swordfish there as well. And why are they passionate about keeping their fishery alive? Gloucester's got 15,000 people in it. These are the statistics. Since about 1800, 5,368 men have been lost from the town. 1,000 boats have sank, 265 that went down with all hands. From 1860 to 1906, 660 boats were lost and nearly 4,000 men were lost. In one storm alone in 1862, 15 schooners foundered and 120 men were lost. The history of this town is written in the tears of the people who've stayed behind, and they are fiercely protective of their fishing fleets. So they've come up with a way to protect their fleets and mean that the next generation can fish, and hopefully the next generation as well. And it's called, this is one of the ways, and this is the thing that I think I want to get involved in, is a community-supported fishery. In a nutshell, it means that local people support their local fleet. And it's just one of the ways that we can fish sustainably and make sure the boats that do fish sustainably are being supported directly by us. Right, how does it work? First off, local people pay money up front to the fleet or to certain boats. It's an organic veg box scheme, that's all it is. So you identify a boat and you say, right, at the start of, say, a 3-month period, I'm going to give you 300 quid, and once a week I want to fish off your boat. In America, they paid a lump sum to get fresh fish once a week, for a set period. In the case of Port Clyde, where it actually started, it was 3 months. The fish are picked up from a central distribution point. In the case of Port Clyde, it was a garden centre. The price is fixed at the start of the 3-month period, crucial for any fisherman, because they sell their fish at auction, and if there's loads of that particular species there that day, they get nothing for them. If there's hardly any, they get a massive price, but they can't budget. They can't budget into the future. With this technique, they can budget. They get a lump sum at the start. Hasten to add, it's not all of their catch, it's a very small proportion of their catch that they use for the community-supported fishery. In Port Clyde, 200 people signed up, paying $360 each. That was $72,000 divided between 4 boats, because there were 4 boats in the scheme. Fish provided gutted, with head still on, or filleted. Filleting lessons, menus, fish throwdowns have all developed from this concept. What happened was, because it is a sustainable thing, because the boat goes out and just catches whatever's swimming past. We're not saying to the fishermen, right, I want a cod and a bass, even if it's not the time of year. You know, we eat 4 species in this country pretty much. We're not saying that to the fishermen. We're saying, just go out and catch whatever you catch, you know, a couple of miles out at sea and we'll have it. And the fishermen were handing it over to people, and they'd open a bag and there'd be this thing in the bag. And they'd be like, what the hell is that, with tentacles and teeth and big boggle eyes? So the fisherman said, oh, that's a yada yada, this is the way we always... And it built a dialogue between the fishermen and their local people. And very quickly a strong relationship developed. Just out of interest, by the way, when I was down in Cadworth, I went to Jonathan, who's one of the local lads, and said, how do I cook this pollock that I've caught? And he said, he said, it's very simple. He said, you put it in a bit of foil, a little bit of butter, a bit of garlic, a bit of parsley, white wine, chuck it in the oven, 200 degrees, 20 minutes. Beautiful. Handsome. And I said, oh, that's great. And I said, suppose I catch gurnard next week. How do I cook gurnard? Very, very simple. It's a bit of foil, a little bit of garlic, a bit of butter, a bit of parsley, white wine, 200 degrees Celsius, 20 minutes, loudly. Jonathan, does every single fish on earth taste exactly the same to you? Yeah, kind of a bit garlicky. Shrimp went from 50 cents a pound to $3 a pound using this system. And so we gave it a go down in Helston. And from Cadworth, and we worked with a guy called Chris Bean. We worked with a number of other guys as well, and we did a kind of fish throwdown event where we got local people to come in and meet the fishermen. And there's Jonathan in the background, Nige behind me there, and look at all the fish. Random drunk bloke who came out of the pub to help out. And you know, and we got everyone energised and excited about what was swimming around just offshore. This was the thing, that it was whatever happened to be around seasonally at that time. The fishermen used less diesel to get there, and they were catching whatever was around. That was the absolute key. And people absolutely loved the idea, and you know, it took off. So what we're hoping to do, there's been a number of agencies who've got in touch. Hughes, a lot have got in touch. Greenpeace have got in touch. The MCS have said they'll back it as well. Co-op, SPA, all sorts of people got in touch. We're going to try and have a conference in January and get people down from fishing communities all around the UK and say, this is how you launch your community-supported fishery. As I said, it's a kind of, you just do what you can, I think. So, and why is it important? Well, I think it's important because you know, we don't want to lose our small boat fleet. We don't want to lose our large boat fleet. You know, we just want to keep talking and cooperating, working together. It's starting to work. I did a conference